A quiet room sits untouched while the world outside hums with noise. Dust drifts through a thin beam of muted light, shifting softly in the stillness. A window stands half open to a society that never stops showing itself, yet nothing from this room is offered back. No updates, no reflections, no traces. Just a life held close, moving gently beneath the surface of constant exposure. And it makes you wonder what truths grow in the quiet spaces where nothing is posted, performed, or proven. The world outside moves loudly, turning every thought into content and every moment into something to display. Screens glow with constant updates, notifications rise and fall like restless tides, and reflections on glass carry pieces of lives broadcast without pause. In the middle of this unending noise moves a quieter figure, someone who drifts through the same spaces without leaving a digital trail behind them. They watch without announcing, observe without performing, and live without turning their life into evidence. While others speak through constant exposure, they speak through silence. Their absence isn't emptiness, it's a choice. In a dim-lit room where soft shadows settle against the walls, their world feels slower, gentler, and far more honest than the noise happening elsewhere. The conflict begins softly, almost imperceptibly, like a faint vibration beneath the surface of a quiet room. It starts when the figure notices the world humming around them with a single belief, that to exist, you must be seen, that meaning is measured by visibility, that a life unshared is a life unlived. Everywhere they look, people are documenting their days, capturing their feelings, broadcasting every shift in their inner landscape. Moments are no longer experienced. They are prepared, edited, and offered to an invisible crowd. And in the middle of this endless performance, a subtle unease forms in the figure's chest, a quiet pressure that asks why they remain unseen. They start feeling this tension in the smallest moments. When a friend posts a story every few hours, when strangers narrate their joys and sorrows like open diaries, when the world moves with a rhythm of constant disclosure. The figure senses the unspoken rule that silence equals absence and privacy equals distance. They wonder why their lack of updates seems to confuse others, why their quietness must be explained. The internal disturbance grows, not loud, but persistent, as if the world keeps knocking on a door they never opened. As this quiet discomfort deepens, something inside them begins to shift. Stillness, once natural, becomes a deliberate act. They start choosing not to share, not because they fear judgment, but because they feel a fragile truth inside them that exposure could easily distort. Every unposted moment becomes a small decision to protect something sacred. They realize that withholding is not emptiness, it is preservation. They begin to see how easily a thought changes once it is turned outward, how quickly authenticity thins when it is translated into something meant for display. Their silence becomes a form of control. In a world obsessed with immediacy, they allow themselves slowness. While others rush to post the moment it happens, the figure lets the moment breathe, untouched by an audience. The more they refrain from sharing, the more grounded they feel. The urge to retreat becomes instinctive, almost ceremonial, like tending a candle flame in a room full of wind. In their quiet, they find agency, a way to protect their inner world from being reshaped by external eyes. Around them, the world only grows louder. Screens flicker like restless hearts. Notifications scatter across devices like sparks. People curate themselves into fragments, a highlight here, a confession there, each piece polished to fit the expectations of whoever might be watching. Identities bend under the weight of performance. They see how exhausting it is, this constant need to be witnessed. They see how validation becomes a quiet addiction, pulling people further away from the parts of themselves that cannot be photographed. Meanwhile, the figure moves with a different rhythm. Their life unfolds in private rooms, warm with dim light and soft shadows. They experience moments without the need to capture them. They feel emotions without translating them into captions. Their inner world remains intact because it belongs only to them. This quiet life is not small, It is full. The world may not see it, but they feel every detail deeply. The way the sun hits their desk in the morning, the softness of a familiar object, the sound of their own thoughts settling into clarity.
The conflict reaches its peak in the contrast between these two realities, a world performing itself into exhaustion and a figure choosing to remain untouched. The noise of constant sharing pulses like a crowded room. The figure stands at its edge, watching, sensing the pull to join, yet knowing that stepping into that noise would unravel something essential. So they choose stillness. They choose containment. They choose a life understood quietly, without needing to be displayed. And in that choice, the conflict softens, not resolved, but acknowledged, not escaped, but transcended. For in their silence, they reclaim the right to exist without proof. A soft moment arrives without ceremony, slipping into the room like the first hint of morning. The figure wakes to a silence that feels different this time, less like distance, more like recognition. The world outside is still asleep, and in the calm light drifting through the window, something quiet unfolds inside them. There is no pressure here, no expectation to translate the moment into something presentable. It simply exists, untouched and whole. Their eyes settle on a small object resting on a shelf, something old, familiar, and completely unshared. A photograph never posted, a letter never shown, a memory held in the soft folds of their own mind rather than broadcast to strangers. As they touch it, the room seems to warm, and for the first time they realize how many parts of their life have grown in private soil, how many moments have shaped them quietly, without applause, without witnesses, without needing to be turned into spectacle. This resurfacing brings a truth that feels both gentle and corrective. Their life has never been empty. It has been preserved, protected, kept close so it could stay real. Privacy was never a void. It was a shelter where their identity could breathe without distortion. Silence was not avoidance. It was clarity waiting to return. In this still morning, they understand that meaning does not depend on being seen. Some truths only remain truths when held in the dark, like seeds becoming themselves before reaching the light. The realization deepens as they move through the room. Every corner holds something unshared. The way they arrange their books, the notes they write only for themselves, the quiet rituals that no one else knows exist. These details form a portrait more authentic than any curated image could, and as the warm dawn softens the shadows, they see themselves clearly, not as someone who hides, but as someone who chooses what deserves to be kept. Identity, once distorted by the world's expectations, returns gently to its rightful home. They no longer feel the need to justify their silence or fill their life with performances to prove its worth. Being unseen no longer feels like erasure. It feels like belonging to oneself. The quiet becomes a place where the self settles, steady and whole, finally free from the pressure to be displayed. In this light, the hidden life they've been living is not a limitation. It is a form of truth. And the stillness that surrounds them is not loneliness. It is the sound of finally being aligned with who they are. Meaning grows heavier when no one is watching it. Moments that stay unposted often feel richer, carrying a depth